Marcus Chen wiped sweat from his forehead as he climbed the crystal steps of the Valcathara family museum. The purple sun of Viridian Prime beat down on his human skin, making him feel like he was walking through an oven. Around him, his alien classmates moved with easy grace, their tall bodies and shimmering crystal skin perfectly suited to this world. "Try to keep up, human," called Zaranis Valcathara from ahead. Her voice carried that musical tone all Cathari had, but Marcus could hear the mockery underneath. She was the daughter of a noble family and never let anyone forget it. Her crystal skin sparkled blue and silver in the sunlight, and she stood, nearly 8 feet tall. Marcus was getting tired of being the joke. For 3 months, he had been the only human in the Galactic University exchange program on Viridian Prime. Every day brought new reminders that he was different, weaker, smaller than everyone else. The other students whispered about how humans were still babies compared to the ancient alien races. "I'm coming," Marcus said, trying not to sound as tired as he felt. His human legs were shorter than theirs, and the gravity here was stronger than Earth's. Professor Veltar waited at the museum entrance. The old Cathari had taught history for over 300 years, and his crystal skin had turned a deep golden color with age. "Welcome, students, to the Valcathara Ancestral Museum. Here you will see artifacts from the greatest warriors in Cathari history." The museum was huge and filled with amazing things. Ancient weapons hung on the walls, their metal still sharp after thousands of years. Strange machines hummed quietly in glass cases. Marcus found himself drawn to the displays, reading every label with excitement. This was why he had come to study xenoarchaeology, to learn about alien cultures and their incredible histories. "Look at the human," Zaranis whispered to her friends. "He acts like he has never seen real history before." Her friend Kralvan laughed. "Humans only discovered fire yesterday, of course this amazes him." Marcus pretended not to hear them, but his face grew hot with embarrassment. He kept walking, trying to focus on the incredible artifacts around him. They stopped in front of a massive display case in the center of the museum. Inside stood a suit of armor that took Marcus's breath away. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The metal looked like liquid silver mixed with starlight. Strange symbols covered every surface, and even through the glass, Marcus could feel something powerful about it. "This is the Nethiskar," Professor Veltar said with deep respect in his voice. "The armor of my ancestor, Thane Cathara, the Stellar Guardian. He wore this armor in the final battle against the Shadow Fleet, 5,000 years ago. It is said that only those with the blood of champions can even touch it." "It's incredible," Marcus whispered. Zaranis heard him and got that look in her eyes that meant trouble. "You think so, human? You know, my great-grandfather always said that true warriors could make the armor respond to them." "Of course, that was only for Cathari warriors," Zaranis, Professor Veltar warned. "The armor is not a toy." But Zaranis was already moving to the control panel. Her family owned this museum, which meant she had access, others did not. "I think our human friend should get a closer look. After all, he seems so interested in our history." The glass case began to open with a soft hiss. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked, suddenly nervous. "Just a little fun," Zaranis said with a wicked smile. "The armor is perfectly safe. It has been dead for centuries. But I wonder, could a human even fit into Cathari armor? You're so much smaller than a real warrior." The other students gathered around, sensing drama. Marcus felt all their eyes on him. He had been laughed at and looked down on for months. Part of him wanted to walk away, but another part was tired of being seen as weak. "I don't think this is a good idea," Marcus said. "Of course you don't," Zaranis said. "Humans are always so careful, so afraid. But what could happen? It's just old metal." Professor Veltar stepped forward. "Students, this is not appropriate. The armor is a sacred artifact." "Oh, Professor," Zaranis said sweetly. "Surely there's no harm in letting him look at it up close. After all, the armor won't respond to a human. It's completely safe." Marcus looked at the armor again. Even without its power, it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Every line spoke of incredible craftsmanship and ancient pride. The symbols seemed to dance in the light. "Fine," Marcus said, surprising everyone, including himself. I'll try it on. Zaranis clapped her hands together in delight. Wonderful. This should be very entertaining. Professor Veltar shook his head but did not stop them. Perhaps he was curious too. Marcus approached the armor slowly. Up close, it was even more impressive. The metal felt warm under his fingers, which was strange for something that had been in a case for so long. The armor was definitely made for someone taller than him, but it didn't seem impossibly large. Well, Zaranis called. We don't have all day. Marcus took a deep breath and began putting on the armor. First the chest piece, which felt surprisingly light. Then the arm guards, which slid on easily. The leg pieces came next, and finally, the helmet. As soon as the helmet settled on his head, something changed. The armor, which had been loose and awkward, suddenly began to shift and move. The metal flowed like liquid, reshaping itself to fit Marcus's human body perfectly. The symbols on the surface began to glow with bright blue light. Everyone stepped back in shock. What's happening? One of the students cried. The armor grew brighter. Marcus felt something incredible flowing through him. Knowledge, power, memories that were not his own. He saw flashes of ancient battles, of ships sailing between stars, of warriors standing against impossible odds. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the museum. Red lights flashed as emergency systems activated. Impossible, Professor Veltar whispered. The armor has been dead for 5,000 years. How is it responding to a human? Marcus tried to speak but found his voice had changed. When he talked, the armor somehow made his words carry the authority of ancient kings. I can see everything. The battles, the warriors who came before, and something else. Something about humans that you don't know. Zaranis stared at him in terror. This was supposed to be a simple prank, a way to make the human look foolish. Instead, she had awakened something that should have been impossible. The armor's glow grew even brighter. Outside, more alarms joined the first as the planetary defense grid detected the massive energy signature coming from the museum. Marcus looked at his hands, watching the ancient symbols pulse with power. He could feel the armor's consciousness touching his mind, and what it told him changed everything he thought he knew about humans and their place in the galaxy. Professor, Marcus said, his voice carrying strange harmonics from the armor's systems. I think we need to call the authorities, and someone should probably contact Earth. They're going to want to know about this. As if responding to his words, the armor sent out a pulse of energy that reached far beyond Viridian Prime, touching ancient systems throughout the galaxy. Things that had slept for millennia began to wake up. Zaranis realized that her simple prank had just changed the course of galactic history. The museum filled with chaos as security guards rushed in. Marcus stood in the center of it all, the ancient armor glowing around him like a star. The blue light from the symbols cast strange shadows on the walls, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with power. "Nobody move!" shouted Captain Murthak, the head of museum security. His crystal skin had turned bright red with alarm. "Step away from the human!" "I don't think I can," Marcus said, and his voice still carried that strange echo from the armor. The armor. It's connected to me now. I can feel it in my mind. Professor Veltar approached slowly, his golden skin pale with shock. "Marcus, you must tell me exactly what you're experiencing. This should not be possible." Marcus closed his eyes, trying to make sense of the flood of information flowing through his brain. "I can see memories, battles from thousands of years ago, warriors fighting against something dark and terrible, and there's something else. The armor knows something about humans, something important." The armor's helmet turned toward Professor Veltar, and when Marcus spoke, it was with knowledge that came from somewhere else. The Cathari have forgotten their own history. You think, you built this armor, but you didn't. You found it. Your ancestors found many things they didn't understand. "What are you talking about?" Professor Veltar demanded. More security personnel filled the museum. Outside, Marcus could hear the roar of military aircraft approaching. Whatever the armor was doing, it had gotten the attention of very important people. Zaranis pushed through the crowd of guards. Her blue and silver skin had turned almost white with fear. "Marcus, I'm sorry, I didn't know this would happen. I just wanted to. I thought it would be funny." Marcus turned to look at her, and she stepped back at what she saw in his eyes. They were still human eyes, but they held depths that seemed to go on forever. "You couldn't have known, Zaranis. Even your people don't remember the truth." "What truth?" she whispered. The armor pulsed with light, and Marcus felt more memories surface. 50,000 years ago there was a war, a terrible war that almost destroyed the galaxy. The enemy was called the Devourers, and they consumed entire worlds. The only thing that stopped them was an ancient race called the Progenitors. Captain Merthak spoke into his communicator. "We need the Military Science Division here immediately, and contact the Galactic Council. They need to know about this." Marcus continued, the words coming from the armor's deep memory banks. The Progenitors knew they couldn't win by fighting alone. So they did something incredible. They spread their essence, their genetic code, into younger races across the galaxy. They planted seeds that would grow when the galaxy needed them most. "Professor," Feltar's eyes grew wide. "You're saying the Progenitors, they use genetic manipulation? They save their knowledge, their abilities, their technology by hiding it in the DNA of primitive species. The Cathari received some of it. So did dozens of other races. But Earth was special." The museum shook as heavy military vehicles landed outside. Through the windows, Marcus could see Cathari soldiers setting up a perimeter around the building. "Special how?" Zaranis asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Marcus looked at her, and for a moment, his eyes were completely human. Again, Earth was isolated, far from the main trade routes ignored by the galactic community. While other species mixed their genes with different races, humans stayed pure. We kept more of the original progenitor code than anyone else. The armor suddenly blazed with brilliant light. Every piece of technology in the museum began to hum and glow. Ancient artifacts that had been silent for millennia started to activate. "The armor recognizes the genetic signature," Marcus said, his voice growing stronger. "It was waiting for someone with enough progenitor DNA to awaken it. That's why I can wear it, that's why it's changing me." Colonel Vaxnall of the Cathari military burst into the museum with a squad of soldiers. He was a massive warrior, even by Cathari standards, and his red crystal skin marked him as a veteran of many battles. "Stand down immediately. You are interfering with planetary security." Marcus turned to face him, and the colonel stopped in his tracks. The armor around Marcus had changed, becoming sleeker and more powerful. The symbols were no longer just glowing. They were moving, shifting into new patterns. "I'm not interfering with anything, Colonel," Marcus said calmly. "I'm awakening it." "Awakening what?" Marcus raised his armored hand, and suddenly, every Cathari in the room could feel something. A presence, vast and ancient, touching their minds with gentle fingers. The defense network your ancestors found but could never fully activate. The weapons they discovered but could never understand. The sleeping guardians that have waited 50,000 years for the right pilot. The colonel's weapon dropped from nerveless fingers. That's impossible. The ancient sites are just ruins." "No," Marcus said, and now his voice carried absolute certainty. "They're not ruins, they're sleeping, waiting for someone with progenitor genetics to wake them up." Professor Veltar sank into a chair, his golden skin flickering with shock. "The old legends. The stories of the returned ones. We thought they were just myths." Marcus nodded. "Your ancestors knew more than you realize. They passed down the stories because they hoped that someday someone would come who could make the old words true." Alarms began sounding across the planet as more ancient sites responded to the armor's signal. In space, monitoring stations detected massive energy signatures coming from dead systems throughout the sector. Zaranis stepped closer to Marcus, her fear replaced by wonder. "What happens now?" Marcus felt the armor's consciousness merge more deeply with his own. Knowledge flowed through him. Star maps, weapon systems, the locations of ancient bases scattered across the galaxy. But with the knowledge came a terrible understanding. Now we prepare, Marcus said quietly. Because awakening the defense network means the Devourers will know where we are, and they're still out there, waiting in the dark between galaxies. The armor's sensors suddenly screamed a warning that only Marcus could hear. Somewhere in deep space, something ancient and hungry had detected the network's activation. How long do we have? Colonel Vaxnall asked, his military instincts taking over. Marcus consulted the armor's vast databases, calculations running through his enhanced mind at impossible speeds. The nearest Devourer scouts are about 6 months away. The main fleet... He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was grim. 2 years, maybe less. The room fell silent except for the humming of awakening technology. Then we don't have much time, Professor Veltar said finally. If you're right about human genetics, we'll need to contact Earth immediately. How many humans are there? About 10 billion, Marcus replied. For the first time since putting on the armor, Marcus smiled. Colonel, I think you're about to discover that underestimating humans was a very big mistake. 3 days later, Marcus sat in the most secure room on Viridian Prime. The Cathari had built this facility deep underground, designed to contain dangerous artifacts and study them safely. Now it contained him. The armor had changed again. It no longer looked like ancient Cathari equipment. Instead, it had shifted to match human proportions perfectly, becoming something sleek and powerful that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Marcus could take it off now, but he found he didn't want to. When he wore it, he could think faster, see further, and understand things that should have been impossible. The human has been cooperative, reported Dr. Silandra to the emergency council meeting. She was the leading expert on ancient technology, and her silver crystal skin marked her as one of the oldest Cathari alive. But the armor's integration with his nervous system is progressing rapidly. Soon, removing it may not be possible. Through the security cameras, Marcus could see the council chamber where representatives from dozens of worlds had gathered. The Galactic Council had never moved so fast to organize an emergency session. Zoranis sat in the room with him, having refused to leave despite her family's orders. She had barely slept since the incident, guilt eating at her for starting something so massive with a simple prank. "How are you feeling?" she asked quietly. Marcus looked at his hands, watching the armor's surface ripple like water. Different. Every hour I understand more. The armor isn't just giving me knowledge, it's changing how I think. I can process information faster, see patterns I never could before. Are you still... you? That was the question that scared Marcus most. I think so. But the armor's consciousness is becoming part of mine. It's not replacing me, but merging with me. Sometimes I remember things that happened thousands of years ago as if they were my own memories. A new alarm sounded, and Dr. Silandra's voice came through the speakers. Marcus, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Ancient sites are activating everywhere. Some are on worlds that have been uninhabited for millennia. Marcus closed his eyes and reached out with the armor's senses. Across the galaxy, he could feel the awakening network. Massive structures buried on dead worlds were coming online. Weapons platforms hidden in asteroid fields were powering up. Ships that had waited in deep space for 50,000 years were beginning to move. It's not just weapons, Marcus said, opening his eyes. There are shipyards, manufacturing facilities, research stations. The progenitors built an entire civilization's worth of infrastructure and hid it from the Devourers. How much of it can you access? Dr. Silandra asked. Marcus stood up and walked to the reinforced window that looked out into the research lab. Cathari scientists were studying fragments of other ancient artifacts, trying to understand how they worked. More every day, Marcus admitted, but I'm not the only one. What do you mean? Marcus turned to Zoranis. Contact your government's Earth embassy. Tell them to start testing humans for genetic markers. The armor is sending me data about your population studies. About 1 in every 1,000 humans carries enough progenitor DNA to interface with the technology. Zoranis did quick math in her head. That's 10 million humans, 10 million potential pilots for the defense network. Marcus corrected. But it's not just about numbers. Humans think differently than other species. We're more adaptable, more creative. The progenitors knew that when they chose Earth as their primary backup site. The door to the chamber opened and Professor Veltar entered with a datapad in his hands. His golden skin was flickering with excitement. Marcus, we've been analyzing the energy signatures from the awakening sites. Some of them are massive. We're talking about structures the size of moons. Marcus nodded. The Forge Worlds, planets converted into manufacturing centers. They've been building ships and weapons for 50,000 years, waiting for activation. Ships? Zaranis asked. Marcus felt the armor access stellar navigation databases that span the galaxy. The progenitor fleet is vast. Dreadnoughts that could destroy stars, carriers that hold millions of fighters, support ships with technology we can barely understand. But they need crews. Professor Veltar sat down heavily. How many ships are we talking about? Millions, Marcus said simply. The progenitors planned for a war that could last centuries. They built enough firepower to fight the Devourers across multiple galaxies. Dr. Silandra's voice came through the speakers again, but this time she sounded worried. Marcus, we're detecting new signals from the outer system. Something is approaching at high speed. Marcus felt the armor's sensors reach out, touching the defense satellites that orbited Viridian Prime. What he found made his blood run cold. That's not a Devourer scout, he said quietly. It's something else. Something that was waiting closer than we thought. The armor displayed tactical information directly into Marcus's mind. The approaching ship was huge, dark, and moving with purpose. But it wasn't designed like the Devourer vessels in the armor's memory banks. What is it? Zaranis asked, seeing the fear in Marcus's eyes. A harvester, Marcus said, the word coming from deep in the armor's ancient memories. The Devourers sent them ahead of the main fleet to gather intelligence and eliminate threats. This one has been sleeping in our galaxy for thousands of years, waiting for the right signal to wake up. The lights in the facility flickered as every piece of ancient technology on the planet began drawing power. Can we fight it? Professor Veltar asked. Marcus felt the armor calculating odds, accessing weapon systems across the planet and throughout the system. The numbers were not good. Not with conventional weapons. But the planetary defense grid has some progenitor systems mixed in with Cathari technology. If I can interface with them directly, that would require you to link with the entire planetary network, Dr. Silandra said over the speakers. The armor would have to integrate with every major system on Viridian Prime. The neural feedback could kill you. Marcus looked at Zaranis, then at Professor Veltar. Both of them were depending on him. Beyond them, billions of beings across the galaxy were counting on the awakening defense network to protect them from an ancient enemy. Then we'd better hope that human adaptability is as good as the progenitors thought it was, Marcus said. He placed his armored hand on the wall and immediately felt the armor's consciousness spread out through the facility's systems. From there, it began reaching toward the planetary defense grid, ready to turn Marcus into the nerve center of an entire world's protective systems. Zaranis, Marcus said, as data flowed through his mind like a river. You might want to warn your people. This is going to get very interesting very quickly. Above them, the harvester ship dropped out of hyperspace and began its approach to Viridian Prime. After 50,000 years of sleeping, the war between light and darkness was about to begin again, and this time, humanity would be leading the fight. Marcus screamed as his consciousness exploded across Viridian Prime's defense network. Every sensor, every weapon, every shield generator on the planet suddenly became part of his nervous system. The pain was incredible, but underneath it was something even more powerful, the rush of absolute awareness. He could see everything. The harvester ship descending through the atmosphere like a piece of living darkness. The Cathari military scrambling to respond with weapons that would be useless against ancient technology. The civilian population beginning to panic as emergency sirens wailed across every city. Marcus, Zaranis called, but her voice seemed to come from very far away. Marcus, can you hear me? With effort, Marcus pulled part of his consciousness back into his body. When he opened his eyes, Zaranis was kneeling beside him, her crystal skin bright white with fear. "I'm here," he said, though his voice now carried harmonics from every communication system on the planet. "But I'm also everywhere else." The harvester ship was massive, easily 5 miles long and shaped like a twisted blade. Its hull seemed to absorb light, making it look like a hole cut out of reality. As it descended, smaller ships began separating, from its bulk like seeds falling from a dark flower. Through the planetary sensors, Marcus watched the Cathari fleet rise to meet the threat. Dozens of their finest warships, weapons charged and ready for battle. They looked impressive until the Harvester's main gun fired once. The beam that struck the lead Cathari battleship didn't just destroy it, it unmade it. The proud vessel simply ceased to exist, leaving behind only empty space and the horrified screams of its escort ships. "Conventional weapons are useless," Marcus said, his voice echoing from speakers across the planet. "But I can access some of the older systems. There are progenitor weapons mixed into your defense grid. Your ancestors found them and tried to copy them." Dr. Silandra's voice came through the facility's speakers. "Marcus, your vital signs are becoming erratic. The strain of controlling an entire planetary network is more than any human should be able to handle." "I'm not just human anymore," Marcus replied. Through the armor's enhanced senses, he could feel changes happening to his body at the cellular level. The progenitor genetic code was activating fully, transforming him into something new. And I'm not alone. Across the galaxy, other humans were beginning to change. On Earth, people who had never shown any unusual abilities suddenly found themselves able to interface with ancient artifacts in museums. On colony worlds, human settlers discovered they could activate progenitor technology that had been buried for millennia. Marcus reached out through the network and activated the first of the hidden weapons, a progenitor particle cannon, disguised as a weather monitoring station, rose from beneath Viridian Prime's northern continent. Its targeting systems came online, and Marcus felt its incredible power like electricity in his veins. The cannon fired, and a beam of pure energy struck one of the Harvester's smaller ships. The vessel exploded in a brilliant flash, proving that the ancient weapons still worked. But the victory was short-lived. The Harvester responded by launching a swarm of attack drones, each one the size of a fighter, but moving with impossible speed and agility. "There are too many of them," Marcus said, watching through 1,000 sensors as the drones spread across the planet's sky. "I need more weapons online." "The integration is killing you," Zaranis said, watching as veins of light began spreading under Marcus's skin. "Your body can't handle this much neural load." "Then I'll have to become something that can handle it," Marcus replied. He reached deeper into the armor's consciousness, accepting more of its alien knowledge and power. The pain was incredible, but so was the rush of enhanced awareness. He could feel his human limitations falling away as progenitor modifications activated in his DNA. The second hidden weapon came online, a shield generator that had been disguised as a geological survey station. A dome of energy formed around the planet's capital city just as the first wave of drones arrived. They struck the barrier and disintegrated, their dark energy absorbed and redirected. But Marcus could see that the Harvester was just testing their defenses. The real attack was still coming. "Marcus," Professor Veltar's voice came through the speakers. "We're receiving messages from across the galaxy. The awakening is spreading faster than we anticipated. Reports are coming in from hundreds of worlds." Through the armor's network connection, Marcus could sense it too. The progenitor defense grid was coming online everywhere, but so were more Harvester ships. Ancient enemies that had been sleeping between the stars were waking up and moving toward populated systems. "How many humans have shown the ability to interface with progenitor technology?" Marcus asked. "Earth reports over 50,000 so far, and the number is growing every hour," Dr. Silandra replied. "But Marcus, the changes they're experiencing, they're becoming something more than human." Marcus felt the third weapon system activate, a mass driver hidden beneath the planet's southern ocean. Through its targeting sensors, he could see the Harvester ship beginning its final approach to the capital city. "Maybe that's what we need to be," Marcus said quietly. "The progenitors didn't just leave us technology. They left us the ability to evolve beyond our current limitations." Zoranis squeezed his hand, and Marcus was surprised to feel that she was warm despite her crystal skin. "You're still you, though. I can see it in your eyes." Marcus smiled, and for a moment the terrible weight of planetary defense systems lifted from his shoulders. "The armor isn't replacing my humanity, Zoranis, it's enhancing it. Human creativity, human adaptability, human compassion. These are what make us special." The progenitors knew that. The Harvester ship fired its main weapon again, this time targeting the capital city directly. Marcus responded by activating all 3 planetary defense systems simultaneously. The particle cannon, the shield generator, and the mass driver worked together, creating a defensive barrier that the Harvester's beam couldn't penetrate. But the effort nearly destroyed Marcus's nervous system. Blood ran from his nose and ears, as the armor struggled to keep his enhanced human consciousness stable. "I can't keep this up much longer," Marcus admitted. "We need help." As if in answer to his words, new contacts appeared on the long-range sensors. Ships were coming out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, but these weren't Harvester vessels. "Those are human ships," Dr. Silandra reported with amazement. "Earth's defense fleet. But how did they get here so fast?" Marcus reached out, with the armor's enhanced senses, and touched the minds of the approaching human crews. What he found made him laugh despite the pain. "They didn't just travel through normal space," Marcus said. "Some of them are interfacing with progenitor jump drive technology. They're learning to use the ancient transit network." The lead ship was the Earth battleship Endeavor, and Marcus could sense that its captain had undergone the same kind of transformation he had. The woman's consciousness blazed with enhanced human awareness and progenitor knowledge. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force," came a transmission from the approaching fleet. "We've come to help our people and stop the Harvester threat." Marcus blinked in surprise. "Chen? Are you related to—" "Marcus Chen is my son," Captain Chen replied, and her voice carried the same harmonics his did. "And I'm very proud of what he's accomplished." The human fleet moved into attack position around Viridian Prime. Each ship was equipped with a mix of human and awakened progenitor technology, crewed by humans who were rapidly evolving into something new and powerful. The Harvester ship found itself facing an enemy it hadn't expected. Humans who combined ancient knowledge with fresh thinking, incredible technology with unbreakable determination. The real battle was about to begin. The space above Viridian Prime turned into a battlefield, unlike anything the galaxy had seen in 50,000 years. The Harvester ship, massive and dark, faced off against the combined human and Cathari fleets, while Marcus fought to control the planetary defense systems that were slowly burning out his enhanced nervous system. "Mom," Marcus said through the communication network, his voice reaching Captain Chen aboard the Endeavor. "It's good to hear your voice." "You too, son," Captain Chen replied, and Marcus could sense that she had undergone changes similar to his own. Her consciousness blazed with progenitor enhancements, but underneath it all she was still completely human. "We came as soon as the ancient sites on Earth started activating. Turns out your old planet has been sitting on the largest progenitor cache in the galaxy." The Harvester responded to the arrival of the human fleet by launching every drone and fighter it carried. Thousands of dark ships swarmed toward the defending vessels like angry insects. But the humans had advantages the Harvester didn't expect. "All ships, this is Captain Chen. Remember your training. The progenitor technology responds to human creativity. Don't just follow the tactical programs, improvise." Marcus watched through the planetary sensors as the human ships began using their new technology in ways the original progenitor designers had never imagined. Jump drives designed for long-distance travel were used to teleport directly behind enemy formations. Particle weapons meant for capital ships were modified on the fly to create defensive screens. The crew of the destroyer New York figured out how to use their shield generators to ram straight through a formation of Harvester drones, destroying dozens of enemies while taking no damage. The frigate Tokyo used its sensor array to hack into drone control systems, turning entire squadrons against their mothership. Impossible, Dr. Silandra whispered, watching the battle displays. They're using the technology in ways that should violate basic physics. That's what makes humans special, Marcus said, though the effort of speaking was becoming harder as more of his consciousness spread through the planetary network. We don't accept that something is impossible just because no one has done it before. Zaranis stayed beside him, her hand on his shoulder, helping to anchor his human awareness as the progenitor systems tried to absorb his mind completely. You're changing too fast, she said quietly. The armor is making you more powerful, but you're losing yourself. Marcus knew she was right. He could feel his human thoughts becoming secondary to the vast calculations required to run a planetary defense grid. Soon, he would become more machine than man, incredibly powerful but no longer truly human. There has to be another way, he said. The answer came from an unexpected source. Across the galaxy, other humans who had bonded with progenitor technology were discovering that they could link their consciousness together, not just ship to ship but mind to mind, creating a network of enhanced human awareness that spanned light years. Marcus, came a voice through the armor's communication systems. This was Dr. James Park, a xenoarchaeologist who had activated a progenitor research station on the colony world of New Haven. We've found something incredible. The progenitors didn't design their technology to be used by individuals. It's meant for group consciousness, multiple minds working together. More voices joined the network. Captain Lisa Rodriguez from the mining station on Titan, where ancient progenitor manufacturing systems had awakened. Commander David Kim from the exploration ship that had discovered a progenitor shipyard in the Vega system. Professor Maria Santos from the University on Mars, where the entire archaeology department had begun interfacing with awakened artifacts. Dozens of enhanced humans, then hundreds, then thousands, all linking their consciousness through the progenitor network. Marcus felt the crushing weight of the planetary defense system suddenly become manageable as the load was shared among multiple minds. But more than that, he felt something incredible happening. The network wasn't just sharing the work. It was combining human creativity and ingenuity on a scale never before possible. Thousands of enhanced human minds working together, each one contributing unique perspectives and ideas. The harvesters are powerful, Marcus said, his voice now speaking for the entire network. But they're also predictable. They use the same tactics they've used for millions of years. They can't adapt the way we can. The proof came immediately. The human fleet, now coordinated by the linked consciousness of thousands of enhanced humans, began executing maneuvers that were both brilliant and impossible. Ships that should have been destroyed by harvester weapons instead twisted through dimensions the enemy couldn't access. Weapons that should have missed found their targets through probability manipulations that violated everything the harvesters knew about warfare. The harvester ship, for the first time in its ancient existence, found itself outmatched. It's trying to escape, Captain Chen reported. The ship is powering up its jump drive. Not if I can help it, Marcus said. Through the planetary defense grid, he activated a system that even the Cathari hadn't known existed. A gravity well generator that could prevent ships from entering hyperspace. The harvester found itself trapped, unable to flee, facing an enemy that grew stronger and more creative with each passing moment. The end, when it came, was swift. The combined human fleet focused their fire on the harvester's dark hull, while Marcus used the planetary weapons to target its critical systems. The ancient ship, built to terrorize civilizations across multiple galaxies, died under the coordinated assault of humanity's awakened potential. But even as they celebrated their victory, Marcus and the network could sense something troubling. Across the galaxy, more harvester ships were awakening. And behind them, in the dark space between galaxies, something vast and terrible was beginning to move. This was just the beginning, Marcus said to Zaranis, as his consciousness returned to his physical body. The armor had changed again, becoming something that looked both ancient and futuristic, clearly alien but perfectly suited to human physiology. The beginning of what? She asked. Marcus looked up at the stars, where human ships now patrolled alongside Cathari vessels. protecting. A galaxy that was finally beginning to understand humanity's true potential. The beginning of the real war, Marcus said. The Devourers know we're here now. They know that the progenitor legacy has awakened. They'll come with everything they have. Zaranis smiled, her crystal skin shimmering with colors Marcus had never seen before. And you'll be ready for them. Marcus nodded, feeling the consciousness of thousands of enhanced humans connected through the ancient network. We'll be ready. All of us. The progenitors chose well when they made Earth their primary backup site. Humans don't just fight to survive. We fight to protect everyone we care about. He took Zaranis' hand in his armored one, and she didn't pull away despite how much he had changed. Including stubborn Cathari who play pranks on exchange students? She asked. Marcus laughed, and for a moment he sounded completely human again. Especially them. After all, if you hadn't dared me to put on that armor, none of this would have happened. Above them, human ships continued their patrol, and across the galaxy, more ancient sites came online every day. Humanity had taken its place as the galaxy's protectors, just as the progenitors had planned 50,000 years ago. The real war was still coming, but for the first time in galactic history, the forces of light had champions who could adapt, improvise, and overcome any challenge. The age of humanity had begun.